Good afternoon, Department of Behavioral Health, and welcome to the update for March 3rd. We're into a new month, and we are continuing to incorporate the feedback from those of you who completed the survey about what was then called the weekly update, or also called then the COVID-19 and general update. Give me one moment, I'm having a technical difficulty.
You can mute that one, sorry.
No problem.
New computer.
No problem. I'm back. Thank you for rolling with us. While we had a technical glitch, we have a new computer over here to my side. Interestingly enough, today you're going to see a little bit about the technology in this room, so consider that a little coming attractions of what you'll see in today's update. But we are continuing to incorporate feedback from all of you who completed the survey. And so on the landing page, the first slide of the slides that I'm sharing, I've changed the graphic. If you've been watching the update for a while, my apologies to those of you who are brand new and didn't know we did this broadcast. We used to have a graphic of the COVID-19 virus, and so since we have intentionally decided to keep our COVID data, just a little bit of updates, rather than focusing so much on COVID, I decided it would be a great opportunity to feature our logo, where hope and healing unite. So moving right along. I want to take a quick moment to acknowledge for all of us that there is a lot going on in the world. And more specifically, I want to take a moment just to sit with you all in stillness and acknowledge that since the last time I did the update, there's a new war on our globe. And so I want to just acknowledge that that impacts us. I won't talk at all about the politics of war, but I do want to talk about the impacts on our well-being. I know that some of you may have family in the Ukraine or in Russia, or like me, who has family in a border nation. I have family in Slovakia that shares a border with Ukraine. So there's an impact there. And then I also want to take a moment to acknowledge many of you have been through war. Many of you have been deeply impacted by war, whether through military service for yourself or your family or loved ones, or by having war on your soil or fleeing war. And I want to also just take a moment to appreciate that sometimes when there's a new war somewhere out in the world, that can re-trigger memories of trauma. And so I just wanted to take a moment today to just acknowledge that, say that out loud, and be mindful of the impact. And even if you don't have a personal connection to war, it can reverberate across us. It can vibrate across the globe with increased tension about what's happening in the world. So I do want to talk a little bit about how we collectively can support one another through complex times. And these are complex times as we're 2 years into COVID-19, and we'll talk a little bit about being on the downslide from the Omicron surge. But again, lots of things happening across the globe, not just this new war with Russia and the Ukraine, but there's a lot going on in our world. But we also have a lot going on in our own communities. And in fact, we have some complex things happening in DBH, right? We've been through a leadership shift. When our director, DeJuan, left DBH, that's complicated, and it's a change for all of us. And then there's a lot happening at the state. In fact, the governor announced some big changes in behavioral health today. We'll be leaning into that to get more information, but it's very complex. And so that can bring stress for us collectively, but also individually. And sometimes we might not be aware of how much things in our environment and even around the world can impact us, kind of at the emotional level. And so we're seeing people having reactions in the community, and even here in DBH, reacting in tense ways. And so I have a couple of helpful hints and tips I hope you find them helpful. I'd like to encourage each of us to pause in the moment and check in with ourselves before we react to a situation. I saw an article where the author said to just sit and observe yourself and observe your feelings and to greet your emotions with kindness, all of your emotions. I thought that was lovely. I think the other important thing is to practice humility. I work hard at this. I'm not always perfect at it, and I hope to continue to improve in this. But humility includes being open to learning, and that includes receiving feedback from others. And then the last tip I have for you today, and I have another slide on this, is to anchor ourselves or ground ourselves in our DBH values and the Fresno County values, as well as our expectations, which really will help us. I think if we can all align together on these values, we can hold each other accountable to the workplace culture that helps us cope. So I'm not including all of that, but a couple of things that are relevant is our quadruple aim here in DBH, and that's to deliver quality care. We know there are so many people that we serve and those whom we could serve, but we haven't yet because the demand for services is only increasing. And we want that care to be quality. We want to maximize our resources while focusing on efficiency. I have to be really mindful of the impacts to those of you who are doing the work day in and day out to serve our community, both clinically and administratively. And I'm aware that we have tremendous workforce challenges. In fact, I think that behavioral health has a workforce crisis I've not seen in my entire career. And so it really takes all of us working together to think about how can we maximize the resources that we do have so that we can all keep our community well. We also want to provide an excellent care experience, great customer service, that's not just with the people that we serve, but with each other as well. And then promoting workforce well-being. Another thing I wanted to tap into is Principle 11 of our guiding principles of care delivery. And that's health and wellness promotion, among other things, but it includes a statement that in doing so, the rights of all people are respected. And then along those lines, the County of Fresno Administrative Policy Number 1 includes a statement, it's our code of ethics, it includes a statement that as county employees, we treat all individuals encountered in the performance of our duties in a respectful and professional manner. And so I just wanted to highlight that today because I think that in these really complicated and stressful times, it is easy to lose sight of those values and to get reactive in the moment because there's a lot going on. One of my colleagues often says, a lot going on, and that's true. There's a lot going on. And so let's try to support one another in our values and keep our workforce vibrant and strong and with the vision that we're one team together serving our community. A little more on acknowledgements. We try to start our month with acknowledgements on various recognition days and similar. So we have a few to share with you today. I'll spend a little bit of time on the next slide talking about women's history. We have some exciting things on deck this month to share with the department from our Public Behavioral Health Division. But it's also Social Work Month, and we have a lot of social workers in the Department of Behavioral Health, and I want to take this moment to publicly thank every one of you. Social work is a unique discipline, and the perspective that social workers bring to the care of our community and those we serve is really important. The balance of a biological, psychological, and social integrated lens through which we see the people we serve and how that integrated lens views the community is really valuable to DBH. So thank you to our social workers. It's also the spring equinox in March, and so that's a fancy way of saying the first day of spring. It's also a birthday for someone significant in my life, so happy birthday to that person. The equinox is the exact moment when the sun passes over the equator, Not gonna lie, I had to look it up. I couldn't remember what that meant, so full disclosure on that. But first day of spring is much easier for me to remember. National Drug and Alcohol Facts Week is an opportunity later this month, March 21st through the 27th, to inspire dialogue about the science of drug use and addiction among youth. If you want more information about that, I really encourage you to check out the National Institute on Drug Use, and they have a website where they've got some pretty cool resources and ideas for activities. Next is the Irish American Heritage Month, a fantastic opportunity to celebrate the achievements and contributions for those Americans who have Irish heritage. And that's up to 33 million Americans, which I did not know. I looked that up too. A little shout out to my mother's side of the family. I was telling some folks that her last name starts with F-I-T-Z. And so when she was in high school and in the Marine Corps, her nickname was Fitzy. And so a little nod to my mother's Irish heritage. And then lastly on this slide, National Foreign Language Week, March 6th through 12th, and also a month. There is a time to celebrate humanity through language, and that's the theme this year. I said I'd lean in a little bit on Women's History Month. This broadcast today does not feature the Getting to Know Susan segment, because I'm replacing it with something way more interesting, I hope for you all this time. But a quick little Getting to Know Susan, just a little fun fact. My minor in college was women's studies, so I do have a minor in women's studies. So in Women's History Month, we celebrate the accomplishments of women in the movement to improve attitudes, support, and conversations regarding women's mental health. So join me in doing that. We acknowledge that for centuries, women have experienced sexism and in many ways have experienced disregard for who they are as a being, as well as their perspectives and contributions. And that has resulted in inequity in health, and in particular, inequities in mental health support. So even today, in 2022, because of the long-standing oppression and long-standing, again, centuries-old views, many women do suffer in silence because their experience of mental health challenges is stigmatized, stereotyped, and often dismissed. Interesting history on the word hysteria, right? And this is a word that was really born out of discrimination against women, perverting the use of the word that is related to human anatomy. And so I get really passionate about this, so I'm going to try to tone it down a bit. But we have an opportunity before us in behavioral health to lift up all persons and all cultures, and how folks identify in their cultures. And so for those who identify as women, this is an opportunity this month to acknowledge their contributions, their perspectives, and to hear stories. So be on the lookout for stories and exciting opportunities to learn more from our Public Behavioral Health Division. A couple of events that are on deck includes a live stream on Hmong women's mental health. It will be delivered in Hmong. I'm excited about that. And also a panel discussion in conjunction with our perinatal program and public health on the physical and mental effects of preeclampsia. So please stay tuned for more information on that. Speaking of culture, as everyone I hope knows, focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion is a top priority for the Department of Behavioral Health. And in order for that to stay a top priority, we really need to understand the diverse perspectives from those that we serve, their families, and our staff. And so we are right now in the midst of the 4th annual Person Served and Family Caregiver Survey period related to cultural humility. We're really grateful to all of you who are helping to make sure that those we serve and their family members receive this survey so that we can hear their voice and their perspective. It really does help us to measure how we're doing with cultural humility, and it's not used in any kind of a punitive way for our programs or our staff. It really just helps us see where we are compared to where we aspire to be. because when we work from a place of knowledge, we know what we can improve upon. So it's really critical to get those voices lifted up. We do have that available in hard copy and digital formats in the languages of English, Spanish, and Hmong. And we've got until the end of the day on Friday, March 11th to get those surveys administered. So I know folks do get survey fatigue, and I just want to acknowledge that that's a real thing. And at the same time, it is one of the few ways that we have to truly hear the voices of the people that we serve, their families, and our staff. So please do help us contribute in getting those surveys administered. When this survey period closes, right after that, we will give a little breathing room, but then do the staff survey to follow, and that would be March 21st through April 1st. So be on the lookout for that as well. I have a mini update, a tiny update related to facilities, and I do plan to give a little bit more comprehensive update at our all-staff meeting, which is later this month, by the way. But for those of you who work at the Heritage Center, we do have some construction starting. So on March 14th, some of the unoccupied areas, particularly along the Millbrook side of the campus, those will have construction start. And so they're going to start with some demolition. Those areas of Heritage will be soon, I say soon, hopefully within the next year or so, converted into our PUFs and our Crisis Stabilization Center. So that's what we have planned for that space, but I did just want to alert those of you who work from that campus. We shouldn't see any impacts to parking or the flow of traffic, at least not immediately. And should we learn of anything that impacts you in those ways, we'll be sure to get communication out from the DBH facilities team. Next up, we had EQRO this week. A little earlier this afternoon, they had a little wrap-up session with our leadership team to give us just a little kind of a peek into some of their observations. I want to start with a huge kudos to everyone who was involved in EQRO. There's too many to name. It's a lot. I know there's months of preparation that goes into preparing for this external quality review organization. That's what EQRO stands for those of you who might be new. And there's a ton of planning and logistics that has to happen. And then there's a lot of participation in focus groups and meetings and describing all of our work, both clinically and administratively. And then there's a whole post-review follow-up process as well, so kudos in advance for that one. In particular, I want to give a great big shout out to Jeff Elliott, our Quality Improvement Coordinator. He is leading the charge along with his Quality Improvement team. So big thank you to them for a great event, multi-day, 3-day event. I'll give you a few highlights. I don't have bullet points on this, but just a few highlights. The reviewers who were here, they highlighted many strengths. In particular, they shared, they were actually curious why in all of the sessions they kept hearing folks say, person served. And they wanted to know, why don't we say consumer or client or patient? And we were really humbled and proud, and Jolie Gordon-Brower from our management team described our reasons why. And it's our commitment to having person-first language, and it's our commitment to having a recovery-oriented culture. And so I was really thrilled to see that they noticed that something is different about how we care for our community here in Fresno, and it's part of our guiding principles. So thank you all for what we're doing on that. They also shared with us that the feedback from the persons that we serve in their focus groups was really positive. And in fact, they said that not only did they feel supported by the staff who are serving them, but they felt hope. And boy, that got me kind of choked up because, you know, we are where hope and healing unite, and we mean that in all earnest. It's not just a tagline. This is why we're here. And so they commented. One of the reviewers said that the folks who participated in the focus group said that the staff hold the hope when they themselves can't hold hope, and so that was really beautiful to hear that they see that in those that we serve. And then they were also really impressed by how much the Department of Behavioral Health has accomplished and how many cool things that we have going on in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. They commented in several different regards that Fresno is ahead of the curve. So we were really proud to hear those strengths. They also noted some challenges, though. In particular, they acknowledged for us and with us, which we agreed with, that the pressures our staff feel are real. And as I mentioned earlier, the demand for services is only increasing. And if you saw the update last week, I talked a lot about change after change after change and more change on the horizon and how difficult that is for everyone. And we acknowledge that. So we have an environment where we have many workforce challenges, not enough folks, hard to recruit, and yet we are resilient. And we are committed to continue strategies forward to help all of you get our work done. And we have great gratitude for all that you do, knowing that it is difficult work. And I just wanted to say something before I wrap up. I was very reflective at the end. They asked if I wanted to make any closing remarks. And I think you all that know me well know I'm never shy on words. And so I did make a few remarks, and I'll share a little bit of that here. Is I am so proud of the work of the Department of Behavioral Health and the people who do the work. I think I said something to the effect of, this is the finest group of people that I have ever had the privilege to work with. It gets me choked up just thinking about what we accomplished together and what a great team we have. So thank you all for that. I also got a little choked up because I wanted to make sure it was very clear to those reviewers. This is a retrospective review, so they're reviewing things that have already happened. And I wanted to make sure to acknowledge that the director at the time was DeJuan Utek. And I am grateful every day for her tenure with our department and the leadership that she provided. And so I really wanted to make a tribute to her that it is her leadership that got us where we are today. And we have a wonderful, resilient leadership team that will help carry us all together moving forward. Short check-in on COVID. What's happening in Fresno County? We've got some really good news. This is kind of a small graphic. I don't know, Brian, if there you go. He's got it up for you all to see. On the left, the very left, what you can see is that is 2 years ago. The little bump kind of in the middle of that top graph, that is the winter surge of last winter. And then toward the very right, that's this Omicron surge that we had this winter. But the good news here is that way down there, where it says March 1st, the very tail end of that declining slope, that's where we are now, and our case rate is dropping, and we are well below where we were last winter's surge, so we have lots of hope on the horizon. Moving forward also, I wanted to share my favorite graph. I love this graph. It just compares where Fresno is compared to the state, Fresno being the orange line, and blue being the state of California. And you can see that we continue to have, both at the state level and at the county level, continuing downward case rates. So currently being Monday of this week, that's the data I'm reporting, we are down to 32 cases per 100,000 people in Fresno County. That's a big drop. That's really good news. And our hospitalizations have dropped. Not quite all the way, but nearly half just in 2 weeks, which is fantastic news. We are still high in hospitalizations compared to a lot of the other counties, so we need to tread forward cautiously, but it is good news. And unfortunately, we are still seeing that the majority of the folks who get hospitalized with COVID are persons who are unvaccinated for whatever reasons that they might choose to be or not be able to have a vaccine. So we want to be sure to help keep people as well as we possibly can. Other good news, the emergency policy, the EMS assess and refer policy, which is where they didn't transport necessarily every single person who had a 911 call for a health issue, that was discontinued last week. So that's a good sign. The fact that they no longer need to have that policy implemented, that's really, really good news. And then one more encouraging note, public health in Fresno County has determined that we're at a stage with the virus where we can go to a demobilizing phase. So what this means is that they'll be transitioning the frequency of their operations call meetings. That's where I get all my data on Mondays. They'll also probably be decreasing the frequency with which they update their data dashboards on the website, and probably reducing their COVID-related media calls as well. All of the tools remain in place. So they're still going to have surveillance data. We'll still have the ability to do testing and various other supports, and have the ability to quickly remobilize all of those efforts as much as needed if we see another surge. So that is a bit of what's happening. A few reminders, of course. I know that folks might be seeing that the state of California has changed masking requirements, but as a reminder, as healthcare facilities, the Department of Behavioral Health buildings do require masking. And do your daily health screenings. The app is super easy to do. Please do that whether you are remote working or working in the office. And then stay home if you are sick. Speaking of remote working, I did mention last week, or not last week, 2 weeks ago, last update, that the county has shifted their language. Instead of saying telework, we're now saying remote work. And we continue to review and plan for the future of what that will look like outside of COVID-related. Managers are redirecting team members to a hybrid where appropriate, and we are continuing to encourage you to expect of you to follow the specific direction of your specific supervisor and your manager. And thank you all for your continued flexibility, patience, and commitment. Now, for the exciting part of today's update, I mentioned we're not doing a Getting to Know Susan. We are capitalizing on the feedback we received in the survey. And one of the things folks expressed is they wanted a little bit less on COVID, want to know things about the department, and have some speakers. And so one of the first things that occurred to me is, for a couple of years, those of you who've been around for a while, we've had these updates, and really all you see is the person in front of the camera. And so I asked Brian if he would be willing to give us a little bit of a behind the scenes, not just about him, but about this technology that we use in order to do these updates, but also really cool other stuff in the department. So Brian is not just the guy behind the camera, behind the lights, and behind the switcher. You're going to learn about the switcher. But he's much, much more, and he is at the forefront of how this department uses media, not just now, but actually for quite some time. He's been at the forefront of this, and we're really proud to have Brian Bishop on our team. So he and I did a little bit of a video production together, so it's not going to be live. He's going to play a video for you. I got to take a turn at holding the camera, realized it's really heavy, and so I need to do more bicep curls apparently, because we had to put it down a couple times. But I hope you enjoy this video getting to know Brian. I'll be back in a few minutes and close us out. Hey Brian, this is so cool to be behind the scenes with you today. Thank you so much for giving us a peek behind the video production curtain. I hope you're doing well today.
I am. Thank you for being here. So yeah, I'm really excited that we get to kind of go behind the scenes and show you kind of what we do here. All of this equipment is used. It's kind of the thing I'm most proud of. From this light here, these are nice big LED lights that help light up our background. We have the green screen here that is pinned to the wall. Got another LED light right here that we're not using right now. We have here, I don't know if you can get down to see this, but this is the PC that Speaker uses during the updates. So when Susan's on here, she is looking at this screen here, and this has an HDMI cable that goes out and into our switcher. And so that, I can actually pull the feed from this PC if I want to. And then over this, on this one, you have another PC, and that one actually has the YouTube stream going when we're actually doing the live stream. So she can monitor comments, you can kind of check to make sure everything's working, and it just gives some feedback on that. This is a softbox, and on this softbox, I can turn this on maybe. Kind of see it here. But that has a light in it, and this softbox basically gives a nice soft light to the subject. So that's, yeah, the softbox basically is there just to light our talent. So we have the two lights in the back that light the background, and we have one light that lights the talent. That is our monitor, and that monitor is showing our talent what is going out on the live stream. So Yeah, we have the monitor here that monitors the YouTube, but it's really good to have an actual monitor to see in basically real time what is actually going out live. So if we have a graphic up, they can kind of catch their breath, look around if they need to, make notes and stuff like that, and then they can see when they're actually on camera.
So Brian, it seems like there's a lot of technical equipment that all needs to fire in and all at the same time. Boy, that sounds complicated. What can go wrong, or do things ever go wrong?
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, we do have issues, and it really is a lot of different things that can go wrong, from software updates that don't drive with the computer, to cables that go out. That's the scariest part, is when a cable goes out, because it's not a normal occurrence, but it has happened twice since I've been doing the updates. What it comes down to is just rolling with the situation and just taking your time, kind of take a deep breath, and because these are stressful. Live streams are very stressful. You wouldn't think so. You'd think, oh, it's pretty easy. You get to do it. You learn how to do it. But every time I'm nervous about doing it. And I think it's the anticipation of doing a live stream, right? We're doing it live. But you just take your time, you just collect yourself, you go through a process, and 9 times out of 10, everything will work out, is what I found.
So Brian, what I'm hearing you say is that you really work hard to have a balanced approach, and it sounds like you keep your wellness in mind. What's your number one wellness strategy, if you don't mind sharing?
I'd say my number one wellness strategy is hanging out with my family, really. My kids are of age now that they actually like doing the same kind of stuff, and I do this for my own enjoyment at home with my kids. We not live streaming, but we produce videos, and my kids have gotten way into it, and we just do it. We go on day trips and we'll film stuff, and it's fun. What you're seeing here is behind the scenes of the switching that we do during a live stream. Right here, this is a switcher, and basically all the inputs come into this box over here. I don't know if you can get this. And from this box, we have a recorder. This is a digital recorder here. We've got our audio levels here, so we can monitor our audio. This is for output. If we wanted to send this to multiple screens, we can do that right now. It's just going to the big screen here. And then at the bottom, we just have our on and off switch. So all of this gets fed into this laptop, and through software, 3 different pieces of software, it outputs a signal and into this switcher. So then this switcher, I can switch this between, right now I have 2 things going. The Mac, you probably have seen these slides rolling before most of our live streams. These are coming from the software inside this computer. Right here. When we're ready, we can switch. Right now it's on camera 1, so we can switch to camera 1. Now you can see the screen over here. That's our live, what we call programming. And so that is what's live. This screen over here that has Fresno Cares on it is our preview for what we switched to. Yeah, so it's really cool. There are things that we can add to it, like the little thing in the corner. I'd have to set that up so it's a Mac. And then we can green screen out the background. Actually, it's called keying out the background. That's just done with software inside the laptop.
So when you say green screen, you mean this thing behind where the speaker sits?
Yes, exactly. So
this is what it looks like to you and me, but when the viewer is watching, they see whatever cool images you put behind them.
Right. And and then what's really cool about that is it's a way to save us some money, actually, because we can actually put any graphic we want back there without having to print anything or go on location. So
maximizing efficiency.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
Exactly.
With that, how did you get into all of this communications and technology?
I've been with the county for 22 years now, almost, and I started at a school called Tillman Education Center, which you're familiar with. Susan was actually my supervisor for a couple of years, I think. Back in the day. And those of you who are familiar with Tillman, it was an aftercare program of the juvenile hall system. So we worked with kids out of the juvenile hall system, and also the boot camp that was around back then. And at first, I really struggled with working with that population, and I had to adjust some things. And when I made some adjustments to how I approached working with those kids, things really took off. And the adjustment I made was I incorporated my interest of video production, music production, photography, graphic design, and the kids they took off with it. one of the issues that we had was truancy with those students. And what we found is that a number of the kids actually wanted to come to school because of what we were doing. And so the school kind of caught on to that, and they started to contract part of my day. It started at like 20% of my day, and then it went all the way up to 75% after a couple of years. And during that time, I got a little better at what I was doing. We got a little bit better equipment, and things just kind of, they snowballed in a good way, if that's a good term to use. Through all of that, the school, eventually, there was an opportunity for me to stay with the school, and I made the decision to come over to DVH full time. And when I did that, you talk about strength-based approach, right? The people here, Dewan and leadership, found out about my skills, and they kind of set me in a position where I was able to utilize my strengths and kind of give back to the community that way. And so that's kind of how everything came about. It's been a long process. I wouldn't say this was something I just, you snap your fingers and 6 months later it happened. This was years. I was probably working with the kids for 12 years, 14 years, and working here under Dewan and Ahmad for another 6 years.
I love this strengths-based approach, and really how it's been a journey in your career, much like all of us are on a journey at some point in our lives. And it's really exciting to see how your skills have developed and blossomed. And how do you see that translating into the Public Behavioral Health Division and the work that you do outside of you have a bigger job than just supporting the weekly updates or now the bi-weekly updates, but how do you see these skills that you've been able to develop contributing into that community?
As far as, the future of what we're doing, what I'm doing, I would say that kind of continue on where we are, which is the partnerships that we have with a lot of the local organizations and groups has just flourished in the last couple of years, even during this COVID stuff. I would say that, for the future, to continue on that route. I really see that. I see us, we partnered with FCHIP. We've made, worked with them on some video projects. We worked with Fresno County Superintendent of Schools and produced some work with them for the All for Youth program. But we're also working closely with media. We're also working closely with other outside organizations. But also we're working closely with our own divisions. And having that unified, communication is really, really important. I've seen.
So Brian, you are a behind-the-scenes kind of guy. Tell us a little bit. I'm putting you on the spot here. What is it like to be in front of the camera with the rookie photography person, myself behind here? What's it like to be in front of the camera? And what advice can you give to other DBH team members who might be a little bit nervous about getting in front of the camera, but we do want to broaden our speakers? What advice can you give?
So yeah, this is always something that comes up, which is, people aren't used to working in front of a camera. That includes me. I kind of avoid it whenever possible, but like I've told Susan and I've told many, many other people, the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And you really just have to practice. And it's something that it's natural to be fearful in front of the camera. But after you do this, if you do this every week, like Susan's doing it every week now with the update, you are going to get better. It's inevitable. So I would say just continue to practice, continue to trust your skills, and you will grow.
That's beautiful. I want to get t-shirts that say that. Trust your skills and you will continue to grow. I love that, Brian. That's beautiful.
All right.
That was so much fun. I hope you all enjoyed getting to know Brian and a little bit of the behind the scenes that it takes to make all of this cool media stuff happen. Thank you to Brian for willing to get in front of the camera and model that for others. And so we look forward to broadening our speakers in the future. So coming attractions as we wrap up, March 17th is going to be our all-staff meeting. And as it stands right now, it is exciting news that our CAO, County Administrative Officer Paul Nerland, will be joining us. So I'm really excited to introduce him to all of you, and I'm sure he's going to be really excited to meet you and take questions. So do look forward to that. And then in April, for those of you who saw the last update, Jonathan Halberstadt put a comment in the chat. And I seized the opportunity to celebrate some of his strengths, which is his robust knowledge of the human brain and how we can strengthen our brain health for our own well-being. And he has graciously agreed to do a little mini presentation on that for us in April. So that's all we have for today's presentation. I know we're a little long on time, but I do want to address some of the questions. So I did see, oh my goodness, I see lots of lovely compliments for Brian. He is indeed a rock star. Thank you guys for lifting him up. So there's a question about the universal masking in DBH, and is it expected to continue for the foreseeable future? I would say yes for the foreseeable future. I will say that things are rapidly evolving in terms of direction coming from the state. So we'll be watching for that carefully, and then looking at any changes in the health guidance from California Department of Healthcare Services. And then in terms of the screening process, it will continue as well for the foreseeable future. And if there's any change to that, we'll be sure to communicate that out. And then there was a question about that date on when construction starts at Heritage. If I'm not mistaken, that was March 14th. And the question about if folks are on the Millbrook side, should they relocate their belongings? Rest assured that our DBH facilities team will be sending out communication to the managers, and they'll share with their supervisors to make sure that if you're directly impacted, that you get notice of that, whether you're working in person or remote working. So thank you for that question. That's a good reminder to make sure we let folks know who might be impacted. Lots of kudos to Brian. Let's see. Valued quality work. Oh, I so agree. Awesome. So cool. The bomb diggity. Oh, I love that. Loving it, loving it, loving it. Oh, and Jonathan commented that he was smiling through the whole piece. I was too, Jonathan, when I saw it. I was lucky I got a sneak peek of it. I'm so proud to know Brian. I don't see any thing from Tina. Folks can always email Tina Young if they have questions and they don't want to put it in the comments. I'll pause just a little bit. Sometimes there's a delay. But if we don't have any additional questions, Brian doesn't see anything. Should we call it, Brian?
Yep.
All right. DBH, it was lovely being with you today. I will see you at the all-staff meeting on the 17th. Do look for that link to come out soon if it hasn't already. I think Tina might have already sent it out. And we'll just keep this wellness train moving forward. Take care of yourselves, be well, and I'll see you next time.